The fire was out, but the canine dog wouldn't stop barking. What happened next left the entire rescue team in shock. No one knew why Diesel, the seasoned German shepherd, kept growling at a pile of seemingly harmless ashes. There was no smoke, no more flames, no signs of life reported. But Diesel refused to leave, and then his ash-covered paw prints led the rescue team to something no one saw coming. Some stories seem like they'll end in silence, until a dog's instincts change everything. If you believe loyalty can hear what humans can't, then this is your story. And this is how Diesel, a canine dog, made everyone believe in the impossible. That night, the sky over southern Oregon gave no warning, just its usual quiet. But at exactly 2:47 a.m., alarms blared across the Redwood County Fire Station. A wildfire had erupted without warning in the Shale Creek Range, a stretch of dry forest spanning over 40 square miles. Strong northwest winds were blowing, pushing the flames 3 times faster than forecasted. The automated alert system scanned heat data and flagged a major fire that had crossed the safety line, just 6 miles from the nearest residential area. The command center classified it as a Level 3 emergency, the highest level for nighttime rescue operations. Immediate response units from multiple counties were dispatched. Among them, the Alpha Rapid Response Team, known for pulling off near-impossible rescues, and one very special member, a canine working dog named Diesel. Diesel was a 6-year-old German shepherd with over 30 missions under his belt across rugged terrain, rubble, and snow. Unlike the friendly backyard pets most people are used to, Diesel had a rare sharpness, always alert, always focused. His dark mahogany eyes never strayed from the rescue pack strapped to the back of Haley, the only partner he'd ever had since his first day of training. When the Alpha team's truck rolled up to the edge of Pine Hollow, it was still pitch black. Only the distant red-orange glow of the fire tinted the sky an unnatural shade of amber. Power lines were down. Residents had been evacuated 3 hours earlier. Local police said everyone was out, but authorities couldn't confirm no one was left behind. 3 homes had lost power before the alerts were even sent. "We're splitting into 2 groups. One team takes the ridge, the other loops around the North Trail," Commander Fielding said quickly, unfolding a paper map on a hood dusted with ash. "Focus your search on any area that had signs of life. Someone might not have made it out." Haley clipped Diesel's harness back in place and gave it a slight tug. Diesel didn't take his eyes off the western tree line, a direction not listed in their assignment. He let out a low growl. Not angry, just disagreeing. Haley recognized that sound. Diesel only made it when he was sure something wasn't right with the human plan. "What is it, buddy?" Haley whispered, crouching beside him. Diesel pointed his snout toward a charred stretch of ground where the fire had passed just a few hours earlier. No smoke, no flames, just ash. He gave the lead a gentle pull, once, then again, not forceful, but firm. "Haley, we're heading left," Fielding called from behind. Diesel didn't budge. Haley hesitated. She'd seen Diesel find a child buried under a collapsed house during the floods earlier that year, after everyone had said no one could have survived. She'd learned to trust Diesel's instincts, even when they didn't seem to make sense. "You sure about this?" she asked. Diesel turned to look at her, his gaze steady as if to say, "Trust me." "Fielding requesting to check this area. Diesel's reacting," Haley said into her radio. "No, that zone showed no signs of life. No heat signatures, no electronics. It's all burned out. Stay with the team." Haley looked into Diesel's eyes again. He still hadn't moved. Her grip tightened around the lead. She paused for a few seconds, then made the call. "Sorry, sir. I'll take full responsibility if I'm wrong." She gave a nod. "Go, Diesel." Instantly, Diesel shifted from standby mission mode. He darted toward the scorched ground like he already knew the way. The earth underfoot was brittle with ash, crunching with every step. The air still held the bite of smoke. No one believed anything could have survived under that blackened mess. But Diesel, he thought otherwise. A few hundred meters away, the rest of the team was still sweeping through a collapsed house. They had no idea that, at that very moment, the German shepherd, the least noticed member of the unit, was leading Haley off the mission map. No one on the team knew that in the direction no one believed in, a life was still out there, buried beneath ash and despair. The wind picked up again, and in the darkness, Diesel sped up. Haley followed, not knowing what they would find, but certain that if Diesel chose this path, there was something that needed to be found. The wind howled through the charred pines, kicking up ash and the leftover heat of a fury now past. Haley ducked low to avoid fallen branches and clouds of soot blown back into her face. Ahead of her, Diesel moved steadily, head low, nose close to the ground, ears upright, like living antennae. He didn't need a command. He'd already chosen the way. The area Diesel was heading toward was outside the Alpha Team's mission map. According to Commander Fielding, this place was completely burned, no chance of survival. But Diesel believed otherwise. And what kept Haley from turning back, what stopped her from arguing, was something she couldn't quite name anymore. Intuition? Faith? Or maybe just a kind of wordless understanding between a human and a dog. The ground beneath them grew softer, the ash nearly ankle-deep. Every step made a muffled crunch like walking through powdered grain. On both sides, charred tree trunks stood like skeletons, their broken branches jutting out in jagged angles. No birds, no insects, just the sound of human breathing and the steady, unshakable determination of a working dog. Haley glanced at the small GPS unit strapped to her wrist. The signal was still holding, but the map showed no marked trails in this area. Just a dark gray patch, an unclassified zone. "Diesel," she called softly, "you sure about this?" The dog glanced back, his eyes catching a faint glint in the dark, then turned and kept moving. He didn't need to answer. He already knew. About 15 minutes in, they reached a small dip in the terrain, surrounded by ash and scorched stumps. Everything was dead silent. No human scent, no visible signs, at least to Haley. But Diesel was different. He stopped, didn't go any farther. Haley froze, holding her breath. Diesel began circling, nose sweeping across the ground, inch by inch. Then suddenly, he growled. Short, dry, final. That growl, the one he only made when he'd locked onto the scent of a living person. "No way," Haley muttered. She flicked on her flashlight and scanned the area. Nothing. No house, no car, no signs of life. Just a flat stretch of scorched earth. Diesel growled again, this time with purpose. He started to dig. Fast, strong, but controlled, like he knew exactly what was buried underneath. "Base, this is Haley," she called into her radio, voice tight. "I'm at coordinates 44.2067 north, 923.2871 west. Diesel just signaled live scent, actively checking the area, requesting guidance." Static buzzed for a second. Then Commander Fielding's voice came through, sharp and cold. "No one is authorized to leave the assigned zone. Haley, return immediately. That area's been cleared. No one's there. This is a waste of time and a safety risk." Haley looked at Diesel. He didn't stop digging. Ash flew up, clinging to the black and tan fur on his back. He let out a low growl, head down, front paws working nonstop. "I can't go back," she said, eyes locked on Diesel. "This dog is digging like there's someone under here. I'll take full responsibility. Over." "Haley, if you continue, I'll have to report this as disobeying a direct order." "I understand." She switched off the radio and slipped it into her pocket. Then she crouched down, pulled a short rescue shovel from the gear pouch on her back, and started digging beside Diesel. Beneath the layer of ash was dry dirt, then splintered, charred wood. But Diesel didn't shift focus. He stayed locked on one exact spot. "What are you looking for?" she whispered, digging harder now. After over 10 minutes, her shovel hit something with a dull thunk. Solid. Not earth, not stone. Wood. Haley froze, panting, eyes wide. It was a scorched wooden surface, but not natural. It was a plank. The top was cleanly cut, edges straight. Someone had made it. Diesel stopped digging and stood still, silent, unmoving. Haley leaned in close, brushing away the ash. It was clearly a wooden cover, like a lid. She slid the edge of her shovel under the plank, trying to lift it. It didn't budge. Something was weighing it down, or it had been sealed shut on purpose. The air around her shifted, thicker, colder. Like this ground was holding on to a secret only Diesel could hear. "You want me to open it, don't you?" Haley asked. Diesel let out a soft hiss of breath. She pulled out a long-bladed utility knife and began carving around the plank's edges. The wood was brittle from the fire, but still solid. By the third layer, her blade pierced through, and a faint burst of air rose up. Burnt, acrid, but under that the unmistakable scent of human presence. Diesel barked sharply, 3 times. Urgent signal, Lev human detected. Haley's heart slammed in her chest, Her grip tightened around the shovel handle. She dropped low, pressing her ear to the ground. A sound, faint, but real. A slow, weak tapping like a small hand or something knocking gently from below. Someone was under there. Alive. Haley shot upright, hands trembling from cold and from the shock. Diesel sat beside her, silent now, but his eyes never left the ground in front of them, as if he knew the real rescue was just beginning. The wind swept a thin veil of ash across Haley's face as she looked up, her heart still pounding. Her ears rang from the sound she'd just heard, a faint, steady knock, slow but unmistakably real. Diesel sat right beside her, completely still. But his body was tight like a drawn bowstring, every muscle tensed, as if his entire being was focused on protecting something no one else could see yet. Haley steadied herself and quickly inspected the gap she'd pried open, still too narrow to see inside. But warm air was escaping, steadily. That meant there was still breathable air below, for now at least. She pulled a collapsible air tube from her backpack and carefully fitted it into the opening. It wasn't much, but it would help keep airflow moving until the support team arrived. From the radio on her hip, Fielding's voice cut through, changed now, no longer shouting, just calm, direct. Rescue team en route, ETA 25 minutes. 25 minutes, and every one of them was a gamble with someone's life. Haley crouched low, keeping a firm hold on the air tube, eyes still locked on Diesel. But instead of holding position like he always did after signaling a live find, Diesel moved. He stood up, turned, and walked a few meters away, still within the scorched zone. He lowered his nose to the ground and let out a soft hiss, a sound close to a warning. "Diesel?" Haley called, frowning. No response, no hesitation. He began circling the area again, retracing steps as if checking for something he'd missed. And that's what threw her. Diesel had never done this. Normally, once he found a survivor, he'd stay put, guard the spot, even lie across it if needed. But this time, he wasn't settled. He wouldn't stay still. She carefully linked the radio signal to her handheld geoscanner, the kind used to detect hollow pockets or unstable ground. At first, the readings were steady. Then a red flash blinked across the screen, an area showing abnormal heat buildup, right behind where Diesel was standing. "No way," Haley whispered. She ran the data again. It wasn't smoldering fire. It was a pocket of compressed hot air trapped underground, likely caused by structural instability below. One wrong move, and the whole space could collapse, or lose all breathable air. Diesel let out a low growl, this time unmistakably a warning. He turned to Haley, then looked back again. His steps were slow, cautious. He didn't want to approach the hotspot, but he wasn't going to ignore it either. Haley got it. Whatever was beneath that survivor, it wasn't just a shelter. It could be a crude tunnel system, or part of a collapsed chamber that Diesel could sense was still shifting. She felt a chill run through her. All they could do now was wait for the support team. But time wasn't on their side. Haley knelt by the narrow opening, leaning close and speaking in the calmest voice she could manage. "Are you down there, sweetheart? My name is Haley. I'm a rescue worker. We're here. Don't be scared. You're not alone. Can you hear me?" No voice answered. But then, again, a faint knock. Not fast, not loud, but steady, still alive. Just weaker. Haley clenched her jaw, glanced at her watch. 15 more minutes until help arrived. Every move now had to be calculated. She looked over at Diesel. He was lying down now, head resting on his front paws, but his eyes were locked outward, tense. He hadn't left the danger zone, but he also wouldn't go near the heat pocket. And in his eyes now, it wasn't just alertness, it was worry. Something Haley had never seen in Diesel before. And that, more than anything, set off something deep in her gut. The sense that the real danger wasn't beneath them. It was getting closer. Every second, a soft sound came from the edge of her vision, like ash sliding down a tree trunk. Then silence. Haley whipped her head around, gripping her flashlight and sweeping it through the dark. Nothing. But Diesel was already on his feet. Alert stance, low growl. No more doubt. Diesel's instincts had kicked into something far beyond search and rescue. He'd caught the scent of something that didn't belong here. And that could change everything. A light rain of ash fell as the first boots from the support team touched down. 3 figures. 1 geotech specialist, a medic, and a mobile ops supervisor, all in bright fire-resistant suits that stood out against the gray-black skeleton of the forest. Haley was already waiting, still holding the temporary air tube in place, eyes locked on the thin wooden seam buried under ash. She hadn't moved from that spot since she first heard the knock. "What is this place?" the technician asked, glancing around the barren clearing. "There's no structure, no sign anyone ever lived here." Haley pointed to the ground where Diesel had marked earlier. "Right here." Diesel led me straight to it. Detected live scent. And under this layer of soil, there's a wooden lid, clearly handmade. "Any sound from underneath?" the medic asked quickly, kneeling beside her. "Yes, 3 knocks, faint but real. A small voice. I think it's a child." The technician frowned, pulling out a handheld seismic scanner and slowly sweeping the area. For a few tense minutes there was only silence. Then the screen lit up with irregular waveforms. A pale gray pocket formed on the display, uneven, stretched out with a sagging center. "There's a hollow space below," he said, his tone serious. "Not very large, and the ceiling looks partially collapsed. If it's a shelter, it's unstable." Haley glanced at Diesel. The dog still lay low, head resting on his paws, eyes locked on a spot a few meters away from the first dig site. "Your dog seems focused somewhere else?" the equipment lead noted. "Yeah, I've never seen him do this. Normally he stays with the point of discovery, but now it's like he senses something else." No one said a word. The technician quietly attached an air quality sensor to the vent Haley had rigged earlier. The numbers that came up made his brow crease. "CO2 levels are rising. If we don't open it soon, the person below could lose consciousness within 10 minutes. No one needed more convincing. "Start digging," the commander said with a nod. "But carefully, no tools with force. Use hands. The ceiling's weak." The 3 team members and Haley began clearing ash and dry soil with emergency hand tools and compact shovels. Each scoop released a soft whump as the ash collapsed inward. Below them, Diesel still hadn't moved, but his eyes kept shifting. One moment on the hole, the next glancing back toward a distant clump of charred brush. He was restless. Something was off. Moments later, Haley's hand hit wood. She exhaled sharply and tapped lightly. This time, no reply. "Step back," the technician signaled. He scanned gently around the surface, searching for an edge they could lift. Another crew member pulled out a small hydraulic spreader, designed for breaching rubble with minimal pressure. The wood creaked sharply as the edge of the plank lifted about 20 centimeters. A surge of acrid heat rushed out, stronger than before, mixed with damp air, like body heat rising from scorched skin. A beam of flashlight cut through the opening. The space below was no more than 1 square meter. A small dugout, clearly made by hand. The planks were pieced together from salvaged wood, the walls lined with tarp, parts of it singed. No adult could lie flat in there, but a child, just enough room to curl up. And just as Haley had guessed, there, huddled in the far left corner, was a boy. Maybe 5 or 6. Lying on his side, a dark coat pulled over his small frame. In his arms, a puppy, still unmoving. Haley dropped down first. She reached through the opening, gently placing her hand on the boy's arm. Cold skin, but not blue. "He's got a pulse," she shouted. "He's responding when I call his name." She gently pulled the boy toward the opening. The medic was ready, arms out, blanket unrolled. He cradled the child, wrapped him in the thermal cover, and began a quick assessment. A few seconds later, the boy let out a faint moan, weak but unmistakable. "Mom? Where's my mom?" he whispered, eyes still shut. Haley couldn't answer. Her throat tightened. She just leaned in and gave his hand a soft squeeze. The puppy in his arms didn't move. It had likely kept him warm for as long as it could, until it couldn't anymore. "Child victim. Signs of life confirmed. Low respiratory rate. Needs fluids and light oxygen," the medic reported briskly. "Immediate transport to mobile triage." A gust of wind kicked up, sending ash swirling in the air. As they lifted the boy from the shelter, Haley turned back to Diesel. He still hadn't moved, but now he was standing, body stiff, eyes locked on the small ridge behind them, the one he hadn't stopped watching. He'd completed part 1. But clearly, Diesel wasn't done. Something else was waiting. And this time, it might not be the trace of life, but something more. The boy was lifted out of the dugout with a breathless urgency, careful, deliberate, like every second counted. His skin was pale gray, lips cracked and dry, but as a flashlight swept across his dirt-smudged face, the entire team paused for just a moment. The boy was still clutching the puppy, tiny, trembling, thought to be gone. But as the medic's hand brushed its fur, it flinched. Eyes, cloudy with smoke, fluttered open. Still alive. Haley walked beside the stretcher, her eyes never leaving the child. He was alive. And that alone felt like a miracle. But something about Diesel's behavior unsettled her. He hadn't returned to the discovery site. He wasn't showing signs of a completed mission. He remained tense, locked onto the scorched hillside behind them, a patch no one had paid attention to. As the temporary medical team brought the boy into the mobile unit, Haley followed. She knelt beside the folding cot where he lay, now wrapped in a thermal blanket, an IV drip starting. "What's your name?" she asked gently. The boy didn't open his eyes, but his lips moved. "Eli," he whispered. "I'm Eli. Where's my mom?" That question hit Haley like a cold needle straight to the heart. She glanced at the nurse, then turned back to the boy, her voice soft. "Just rest now, Eli. We're going to find your mom. I promise." Eli shifted, his small arms still clinging tightly to the puppy. "Mama said, if I got scared, to hold Bandit," he whispered. "Bandit would stay with me. Mama said she'd come back." Bandit, the tiny terrier, was probably the only thing that kept Eli from slipping away in the dark. It had stayed curled against his chest through the smoke and heat, shielding him with its fragile, soot-covered body. And Eli, through panic, hunger, and cold, never let go. She put me in the hole," Eli continued, breath hitching. "Then she locked it. She said she had to find help. Mama said don't be scared, but I didn't want her to go." Haley felt her chest tighten. A mother, a wildfire. One split-second decision, to put her child in a homemade shelter, seal the top, and head alone into the blaze to look for help. There was no guarantee she'd survived, but there was nothing random about Diesel's behavior. Haley stood and looked toward the tree line, where Diesel still stood watch, not barking, not whining. But his eyes, they looked like they were holding on to a promise. She walked over, crouched beside him, and whispered, "You brought me to Eli, but there's something else, isn't there?" Diesel glanced at her, then turned and began walking toward the scorched ridge. No command, no leash. And Haley, without hesitation, followed. Inside the medical tent, Eli had drifted into sleep. The pediatric doctor gave him a quick check and nodded. "He's exhausted, but no critical injuries. Low blood pressure, dehydrated. Fortunately, body temperature's still above danger level." A social worker had begun collecting basic info to notify local authorities. They had no name for the mother, no address. All they knew was the house Eli came from had been completely destroyed, and that hand-dug shelter was the only thing left standing. "She dug that thing by herself?" the doctor asked. "Looks like it," the nurse replied. Hand-joined wood, insulated with a thin blanket. No proper tools. Probably a single mom, doing what she could. Silence fell over them. Meanwhile, Diesel was leading Haley down a narrow path, too slim and damaged to even call a trail. Everything here was scorched to the roots, the ground soft and uneven with charred roots poking through. Then, just a few steps in, Haley stopped. A slide mark, long, deep, clear against the ash, and next to it, footprints. Not a man's. They were small footprints, likely a woman's, but dragging, uneven, as if each step was taken through pain. Haley swept her flashlight across the trail. The prints led uphill toward the dirt road that connected to the evacuation route. "She was trying to get out," Haley murmured, almost to herself. Diesel moved forward a few more steps, then stopped. He let out a low growl, eyes fixed on a spot about 15 meters ahead, where the ground dipped slightly and the ash looked darker than the rest. Haley rushed forward. The earth there was sunken. She knelt, touched it gently, soft. Ash mingled with something else, faint but unmistakable. Blood. 3 seconds later, Diesel barked. Not loud, but firm. 3 times, precise. Haley's hand clenched, her heart slammed in her chest. Eli hadn't been alone out here, and the story of the mother, the woman who dug a shelter with her bare hands to save her child from a wildfire, wasn't over yet. A temporary field hospital had been set up beside the wildfire command post, about a 20-minute trek from the site. Morning had come, but the light was pale and tired, unable to cut through the heavy exhaustion hanging in the air. The fire was under control, but ash still drifted from the gray sky like chalk dust. In a small treatment room, Eli lay curled under a thin blanket. His face was peaceful now, color returning to his cheeks thanks to warm oxygen and IV fluids. Bandit, the little dog that somehow survived it all, rested in a towel-lined plastic bin beside the bed. Every time Eli stirred awake, half dreaming, his hand would reach out and gently touch the box, whispering the pup's name. Even in his haze, the motion was automatic, as if the child's survival instinct wasn't just his own, but something he shared with the small friend who never left his side through the nightmare. Haley stood in the corner of the room, still in her ash-covered rescue gear. She'd refused rest. The only thing she was waiting for was news from the follow-up team, the ones who had just found a woman, barely 100 meters from the shelter. When they found her, the mother was still breathing. Her body had been hidden beneath a fallen, charred tree, half buried in a shallow patch of earth. She was lying on her side, arms wrapped tightly around something pressed to her chest. When the nurses gently rolled her over, they saw what it was: an oversized coat, sleeves torn, and inside the lining, traces of dog fur. She hadn't just led her son to the shelter. She had taken off her coat, wrapped it around Eli, wrapped it around Bandit, then sealed the hatch with her own hands from the outside. Then she'd walked into the inferno, not for escape, but for hope. Her name was Marissa Lane, 32 years old, a single mother, part-time nurse in a small town nearby. The power had gone out during the night, and no warning reached her in time. When she saw the glow of fire rising behind the trees, she had only minutes to act. One hand digging, the other carrying her son, armed with a kitchen knife and a broken-handled shovel. Nothing but a mother's instinct, and no time left to be afraid. When the ambulance brought Marissa in, she was unconscious, pulse faint, core temperature below the danger threshold. She had fractured ribs, blood loss from a deep wound in her thigh, and light lung damage from smoke inhalation. But she was alive, and more than anything, she had saved her child. When the doctor told Haley the news, she had to turn away for a moment, so no one would see the tears quietly slipping down her face. She didn't leave the hospital. And when Marissa was moved into recovery, still on a ventilator, Haley was the first to step inside. Diesel wasn't allowed in the critical care unit, but he lay just outside the hallway window, head resting on his front paws. He didn't sleep. His eyes stayed fixed on the glass like he was still on duty. Haley sat in the chair beside the hospital bed. Marissa hadn't regained consciousness. Her face was pale, shoulder and thigh wrapped thick in gauze, lips cracked and dry. But there was something in her features, something steady, a quiet kind of strength. "Eli's okay," Haley said softly. "He's been asking for you. And Bandit, he made it too." From her pocket, Haley pulled out a small object, a soot-streaked but intact stuffed bunny. "You were still holding this when they found you." No response, just the steady beep of the heart monitor. Haley stayed a few more minutes. She didn't know Marissa, had never heard her name before yesterday, but the feeling sitting in that room was something else entirely, a deep, wordless gratitude. Not just for someone who survived, but for someone who'd taught her something without speaking, that the strength of a mother doesn't live in muscle, it lives in the choices she makes. And Marissa, in that fleeting space between life and death, had made her choice to sacrifice. Without hesitation. The door to the recovery room eased open. A doctor gave a small nod. Haley rose and stepped out. Diesel immediately stood and walked beside her, close and silent. The hallway was dimly lit, filled with the soft scent of antiseptic and the low murmur of nurses on night shift. On the way back to Eli's room, Haley paused. She looked down at Diesel. "You knew, didn't you?" The dog didn't respond, just tilted his head slightly. From the start, it wasn't just about finding the kid. You sensed it. She was still out there, still alive. Diesel stepped forward a few paces, then lay down in front of Eli's door. His eyes were soft now. No more tension. No warning. He knew. This mission was nearly complete. 2 weeks after the Shale Creek fire, the skies over Oregon turned blue again. The charred forests still stood in silence, blackened trunks, scorched roots not yet ready to bloom. But life, in its quiet way, had started to return. And in one quiet room at Redwood County Hospital, life had a name: Eli and Marissa Lane. Marissa woke 5 days after slipping into a deep coma. The lung surgery was a success. Her left leg was reinforced with a titanium rod. The complex injuries were healing steadily. She didn't remember everything, just that she pushed herself to the edge. And then, the light returned. Quietly. When she finally opened her eyes, her first question wasn't about herself. Did they find Eli? And when the doctor nodded, her eyes filled with tears. In that moment, nothing else needed to be said. On the 8th day, Eli was finally allowed to visit his mother. He walked slowly beside the nurse, still clutching Bandit, now fully recovered, wrapped in a soft white coat. When Eli saw Marissa, frail but smiling, he let go of Bandit and ran into her arms with every bit of strength he had left. They held each other. No words, just warmth. And the soundless sobs of two hearts reunited. That hug paused the entire hospital for a moment. Haley watched from the hallway, not stepping in. Beside her, Diesel sat tall, head lifted high. He didn't bark. He didn't need to. He knew. The mission was complete. News of the rescue spread overnight. Major outlets ran the same headline. Canine dog finds hidden shelter in ashes, rescues mother and child trapped in wildfire. The stories spoke of the Alpha Rescue Team, of Haley, the only responder who disobeyed orders, and of one detail that moved the entire nation. A German shepherd named Diesel who refused to leave a stretch of burned earth labeled "no signs of life." And because of that, 2 lives were saved. The post went viral, shared millions of times across platforms. TV shows rushed to book Haley and Diesel for live interviews. One state official proposed awarding Diesel the State Life-Saving Medal. The first time in 20 years a working dog had been nominated for the honor. But to Eli, Diesel wasn't a hero. He was a friend. On the day Eli was discharged from the hospital, Diesel was there to say goodbye. Eli knelt down, wrapped his arms around Diesel's head, and whispered something only the two of them would ever understand. Bandit, tail wagging non-stop, curled up beside Diesel's legs, as if offering his own quiet thank you in the language only dogs know. Marissa followed behind on crutches, paused in front of Diesel. No tears, no dramatics, just a hand on his head and a whisper. Thank you for not giving up when everyone else did. Diesel lowered his ears, his version of a nod. 1 month later, at a ceremony held by the Federal Rescue Service, Diesel stood proudly in the center of a crowd of human responders, wearing his canine honor ribbon. Haley's speech was short, but it brought the entire room to its feet. He doesn't need to know he's a hero. He just needed to know he was right. And because of that, 2 people are alive. Diesel's story wasn't just a rescue. It was living proof of something simple. Instinct, trust, and loyalty can see what human logic overlooks. And sometimes to change someone's fate, all it takes is a dog who refuses to walk away. Thank you for sticking with us through the entire story. And if you'd like to support what we do, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We're deeply grateful for every bit of your support.